Well, everyone, we're coming to the end, the final section, the last question we've got today on the book of Philippians. And I'm really excited to have gotten to sit down with Jackson and work through some of these things. I'm not sure when this will launch, if it'll be with another episode or how we're going to break this up, but we're here. We're having a great time. I'm having a great time. You having a great time, Jackson?
I'm having a
All
wonderful
right.
time.
Me and him are both having a great time. That means we're having a great time. It's going really good. We're going to get to this last question here. And it comes out of Philippians chapter 2. Would you mind reading verses 1 through 4 for us, Jackson?
Yes, sir. Therefore, if there is any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy by being like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look not only for his own interests, but also for the interests of others.
Yeah, so here's the passage we want to think about, and we want to ask this question specifically: is what are some concrete actions that can display this sort of behavior, this beautiful ideal that he goes on to talk about having the mind of Christ in our Sunday gatherings? Okay, so I want to think about that question for in our Sunday gatherings, because I mean, obviously, our Sunday gatherings, church on Sunday is not the only thing we do, but it is a critical point, and I think sometimes it sets the tone for the other places, right? And so if we're not
Yeah.
living this, if we can't live this for an hour and a half on Sunday or 3 hours on Sunday, then an hour and a half on Wednesday, like if we can't do it here for that
Mhm.
long, then like it's probably not going to permeate out into other fellowship areas. So let's think about what are some ways we can try to show this to other people.
So, I had some negative examples. So
Great.
I'll take and flip a couple of those, but the way that we can let this mind be, it's one thing that comes to mind is song preference.
Mm,
We lead songs, we sing a cappella, and
sure.
sometimes someone can get up there and lead a song, and it's let's just say it's a difficult song, one we don't know very well,
Sure.
and it can very easily be the mindset of the person sitting in the pew, and I've been guilty of this, of you're leading a song I don't know, and I kinda don't like the tune, so I'm not gonna bother singing, or I'm
Mm,
just gonna kinda mouth the song or just kinda hum, and I'm not gonna give it my all. And, that can permeate into the rest of the assembly of if I'm not willing to, for just a few minutes, give my best effort to somebody else putting themselves in a position
mm,
where they're the leader of the song, they're putting themselves in a position which frankly, they can be embarrassed by getting
mm,
up there and leading a song that nobody knows, and they're left singing a solo. And what does it say about me that I'm not willing to help keep them from being embarrassed or help
sure.
bring them some joy? Because they probably walked up there thinking, this is a song I've heard before. It sounded great on that album of Praise and Harmony or some contemporary Christian song, and they might have thought, it's going to sound great today, this Sunday
Mm.
morning. And I'm here like, nah, no, we're not doing that. And how selfish is that of us to do that kind of thing? So I would say the way we have this mind that's also in Christ in a Sunday assembly is how can I make this experience the best it possibly can be the most excellent for everybody else? How can I
Sure.
be there for others?
Yeah, well, I want to hit on that song choice one because I was actually going to look at it from the other side,
Okay.
which is because and I think this is helpful, right? Because the attitude that we've got to have is how do I take care of me, whatever
Mhm.
situation I'm in. How do I be the person that serves other people? And you mentioned if I'm in the pew, right? Sometimes what you need is it's not going well, and we want to just quit. Whereas what we really need is we need to help the person. Like
Mhm.
I'm going to throw this quick example, then I'll get to my actual example. Is the person they're kind of off to a rough start on their sermon. Things are. It's like, okay, is this really getting out of the gate? And you're just like glaring at them, like, really. You're kind of
Yeah.
rolling your eyes, and you just look mad. I know people have a face. I'm not saying everybody's got to be like this happy-go-lucky guy. I get that I'm kind of like that, but sometimes, when I'm like, it's kind of going a little rough, looking over and seeing somebody with a smile on their face
Mhm.
and kind of nodding their head and encouraging helps me get it back on the rails. Where if I was just looking at a bunch of faces that looked angry, it's going to continue to spiral.
Mhm.
Sometimes when we're in the audience, we need to realize that the audience, when we're in the audience, we're participating too.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
because we're not leading doesn't mean we're not participating.
Mhm.
And so we need to think about how we can perhaps minister whenever things are not going well because they don't go perfectly.
Yeah.
Um, then on the other
It's
side,
it's
what I was
it's
going
that
to go ahead.
Simon I'm sorry, it's that Simon attitude of picking up the cross for Christ.
Yeah.
It's like things are not going well right now, obviously. It's like it's very easy to just look on, be an onlooker, but, like, have that Simon mentality of, "I'm
Mhm.
gonna help you carry this." you
Yeah.
know. Although
Absolutely.
there was some compelling there, but I mean, obviously he did rise to the occasion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I get you there without pushing too much into it. I get the attitude. That's the
Mm,
yeah. Let's try to help here, as much as we can and in the right way. So then the other thing I think, because I think we got to look at it from the other side too, right? Is if I'm a song leader, I need to try to make sure if I'm going to lead a song that it's going to actually help people, right? Because the purpose of song leading and singing is to serve the congregation, right? And so if I look and I'm like, we can't handle this, it doesn't matter that it was my mama's favorite song. You know,
mhm,
the song leading is not a chance for me to aggrandize myself and to
mhm,
indulge my desires. It's a chance to serve. Everything we do
mhm.
is service. And is that to say we can't have misperceptions and misjudge? Yeah, I've misjudged before. There have been times I'm like, oh yeah, we can handle this, and I get up there, I'm like, oh, this is not going very well.
Yeah.
And you got to try to do various things to make it work. And sometimes you do or don't. And that's, and you learn from those experiences. So we got to be sympathetic there. But also, I've got to look and be like, is this going to help people or not?
Mhm.
And if it's not, I've got to keep an eye to service for that. So there's got to be both sides, right?
Yeah.
If I'm a participant, there's plenty of songs that I just don't like the tune of.
Yeah.
I've got tastes, and everybody has tastes, and that's
Yeah.
cool. Um, but I need to be mindful as a leader. What am I doing that helps people? So
Mhm.
absolutely, what I'm thinking of there, and our singing on both sides. All right, what else you got?
I think this is might be an obscure example to some people, but it's also at the same time ever present for most of us. But that's
Mm,
raising children and disciplining them. I
mm,
thought about how this can be an encouraging aspect of a Sunday assembly versus a not having the mind of Christ and encouraging others and thinking of others. But you think about if your mindset is I want to make sure that my children know how to behave in an assembly properly for the purpose of uplifting the older generation.
mm.
For an older generation to look down at a younger generation raising kids and for them to see that their kids are well behaved, how much of an encouragement is that to them to see that you're purposeful in doing that? Now, you're not trying to be a draconian, never speak, never look across, like, you know, kids are going to fidget a little bit. I get
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But if older people can see that young kids know how to handle themselves, there's a degree of security and peace that they feel that okay, things are going to be okay in the future, for the church. And not that kids behaving in assembly is the benchmark of all
no,
things excellent in the kingdom, but it's one of those things that we can practice. And also on the flip side, if they see kids that are, cantankerously gallivanting around the building all the time, or getting up during the assembly and going to the bathroom and staying back there for the entire time and not coming back to the last song, that stuff shows,
mm.
and it can be a discouragement. I don't even know if that's a word, a discouraging aspect of the assembly to older people.
Yeah, no, I think I hadn't thought of that, but I think that's definitely the case. And as a parent, I'm not a parent obviously, but sometimes entering into that time of discipline is a little bit difficult, you know.
Mhm.
And I'll say there's different perspectives, different cultures on what is right, and what's acceptable. We went one place whenever I was, 0 to 5 or so, and we were kind of the bad kids.
Hmm.
My mother's perspective on what fidgeting was allowed was, not as well accepted by the church community. Right or wrong, we're not going to make any judgments about that. And then
Sure.
we went to another place, and all of a sudden we were the angels. It's like, wow, how do these kids behave so well? So we got to be aware,
Yeah.
kind of what the culture is and read the room there. But that's part of serving, is reading the room and figuring out what are the things that are here. And if a kid's coming from a situation where things are more lax on how kids behave, and they come to a situation where it's a little stricter, that adjustment's gonna take some time. But as parents, we need to be mindful of that for sure. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, another one I thought of is just don't be mad if somebody sits in your seat.
Oh man, that's that's some tip top level stuff right there.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is so we're in a spot at the church we're at where we're starting to kind of reach a little bit of capacity. And so we only have about 5 or 6 chairs per row. We've got chairs. So, if a family of 6 or 7 comes in, that's going to take up an entire row. So somebody's seat's probably gone on that. We've got a deal where it's kind of like if you get couples on the ends and the 2 seats in the middle are kind of there. We've only got so many spots where that's really an option now. And
Mhm.
so people are getting displaced, and so we've got to, fortunately, Aubrey and I sit on the second row, so nobody's taking our spot.
Yeah.
Um, but hey, whatever that takes. We gotta be aware of that.
Hmm.
And we need to make sure that, hey, if somebody's in your spot, that probably means they're either visiting, which is great, or they got kicked out of their spot. Like
Yeah,
these are
we
both
immediately
wins.
yeah, we immediately think that the knee-jerk reaction is like, "This is an assault on me,"
Yeah.
like nothing was done to them to put them in this position. Like, there's no empathy is the word, like, we have 0 empathy when someone inconveniences us.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's the whole deal is that, we get our rhythms and like, rhythms and ritual and rites and practices are a part of like doing the heavy lifting of getting our minds in the right spot, right? Like I have the walk to the front that I do for church and I get my spot. And like that walk is kind of like therapeutic. I mean, I don't do anything like spiritual, like hit my breast every time I take a step or anything like that. But like that walk is setting my mind there. Whereas if I'm having to walk to the other side of the building, that just doesn't feel right and I'm not as settled. So like
Mhm,
that place where I'm at and that rhythm and that cycle is has a purpose. It's used for getting my mind to a spot where I can be where I need to be, and my mind
mhm,
needs to be where I need to be. And so if I'm in a different spot, it's a little bit harder, but I've also got to like just have some awareness about like, hey, it's not about me at the end of the day. And maybe
mhm.
I don't have the most emotionally compelling worship of my life, but somebody else has got a spot to sit, and that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of these things too. One other I'll mention, is replace the paper goods in the bathroom. To me, this is, but perhaps I'm being too strong here. But like, at least tell somebody. I know different churches do things certain ways, and some people have, commercial
Mhm. You gotta have a
dispensers
key to
where,
open it up.
yeah, the deacon's got to have a key and a retinal scanner to open it up. I get that, but like, tell somebody. Like this is
Mhm.
not a shopping mall.
No.
This is a body you're a part of, and like I'll
Mhm.
tell you if it comes to the toilet paper in the men's room, I'm pretty unobservant, but there's only one spot it could possibly be. There's only
Yeah.
one spot, and
Yep.
it's underneath the vanity. That's where it is. I've
Yeah.
never looked because it's always taken care of because we got good people, but like that's the only place it could be. So
Or
transition from being consuming to contributing in that way. Go ahead.
yeah, or, go the extra mile if you can't find it, find somebody who looks like they have some authority or maybe who looks like they're going here a decent amount of time and bring it up to them and say, "Hey, there's no toilet paper left." And if you cannot find it, go that extra mile to bring that up. Also, I'll speak to that too about the toiletries and, like, don't allow try not to allow your kid I get accidents happen, but try
Yeah.
not to allow them to run the toilet paper onto the floor,
Yeah.
and now you've got a bunch of wasted toilet paper or, don't clog the toilet, and I get it, stuff happens, I get it. I don't know where I stand on having a plunger right next to it for you to do the work or not. Like, I don't know if that's purely a church maintenance staff kinda thing, but, I mean, if that's the worst thing you have to do to show that you care, you know, one of those things, but yeah, I'm with you on that.
Take some ownership, and like, is it, and here's the deal. If you cause a leak or your kid runs the toilet paper or whatever, is that the end of the world? No, but these sorts of things, to me, I'll say for people to consider, show a level of what's our attitude here.
Mhm.
Are we thinking about this thing as someone we have ownership in this thing? And I get the building is not the most important thing, but do we
Right.
have ownership in the work, in the mission of what we're trying to do here? Or are
Yeah.
we just here like getting stuff?
Yeah, are
And
you
that
renting this
mindset.
place?
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, it's like, are you renting? Are you a tenant, or are you an owner of the home?
Yeah, absolutely. And so have ownership and view things, not from an authority standpoint, but like hey, I'm in this thing and this matters to me. And is that stuff a big deal? I don't know, but the small stuff matters. Small stuff
Yeah,
matters. It makes a difference.
absolutely.
So I'd say that's the just to give one more landing here. That's to me where a lot of this lands is what do we do with the small things, with the small amounts of attention to detail. These sorts of things to me really make the difference on pursuing other people. Is looking at what serves them, even in the small details, things that people might overlook. But entering in literally with a consciousness of looking out for others' needs above your own.
Mhm.
And to me, once again, our Sunday gatherings, the most important thing we do, we can debate that. but it's one place where, like, let's just try to focus for an hour and a half and see what happens. And I think
Yeah.
we'll see if we make those habits work for that hour and a half, that starts to permeate into other situations too.
Amen.
Well, Jackson, thank you for joining us. It's been a great ride. Really appreciate you hopping on and giving me a conversation partner. And hopefully, together, you and I have helped to discern some of the things that are excellent in the book of Philippians.
Absolutely, man. It's been a blast. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all. Thanks.